Good evening. Normally, I say we're here to do one thing and one thing only, and that's to obsess about Napoleon. That hasn't changed. I don't think it's going to change. But I plan on obsessing about Napoleon in a very new way. That's very shocking to me. I I have said many times that I have felt guided by Napoleon, and I have wondered many times if he had reincarnated. And I would think about that a lot. Like, who would he become? What would he be like in this world? I really would think about it. But I didn't really believe that he was among us. And I prayed a lot about it and I asked a lot about it. And I didn't I didn't get that he was here. So I figured he wasn't, and I was very connected to him as a spirit. And I still am extremely connected to him as a spirit. That hasn't changed at all. I can still talk to this I guess I don't know what's going on. They say it's like a higher self. So there's like the person that's us that's here spiritually, and then there's I said that wrong. There's like the physical us, and then there's the spiritual us. We're supposed to have a higher self, and I don't really deal with my higher self. I deal with Napoleon. I don't know about Tanstra's higher self. I'm always dealing with Napoleon, and I don't even know where I end and he begins. I don't even see the difference anymore. We're so connected. So this is my experience. I've been saying all along, I'm not running this project. I'm not. If I'm in a dyad, I'm very much the junior partner. How could you not be with Napoleon? He's the most adamantine, domineering person ever. Imagine that being your twin flame, and he dominates my life, and I just love him. So he's free to. It's just a weird dynamic between us. So January, it was launched on me that he is here on among us, and I didn't realize that at all. And um, it's been really hard for me to deal with, and I just there's so much going on with me, and I don't want to ramble. What I have to say is that I do know Napoleon. I know that these things are all going to make some people think that I'm an insane person. And that's why I hesitate to talk about these things. But these are my realities. And I do spend a lot of time alone. So I am in the spirit realm most of the time, and I'm much happier there. That's why I really don't care about all the sick rules that the puppets come up with here and all the lies. I just go somewhere else and stay there, and I'm happier there. So anyway, Napoleon is someone who was unlike anyone else, in my opinion. I really can't compare him to anyone else. You have these very unusual types, like a Jesus type. There's not really anyone else who's like that. I do think Jesus is very much a real spirit. I don't know who he was historically. I have spoken to him, and not everything we're told is true, based on what I hear from him. So, seek him, see what he has to say. And he's a very unusual type of person, also. If you want to call him a person, he's obviously spirit, but he has a personality, and so does Napoleon. And actually, I think that Jesus and Napoleon are very much in admiration of each other. I think they like each other a lot, as wild as that sounds. But they have very different personalities. And Napoleon is someone who didn't really have much of an education. He left military school, probably in his teens, and he founded a banking system which was incredible. And I wish we could go back to the incredible banking that Napoleon founded. It was based on real money and real work, and not crime like the one we have. That's the truth. He effected a revolution in the laws. He created a new, much fairer legal system. He made major improvements in agriculture, manufacture, progress in science, progress in the arts, progress in music. He loved music. He put music first. Anything he did had music involved with it. He was incredibly moved by music and he loved it. And there's all kinds of things I can tell you about him. But the point is, he could do things that there was no reason he could do them because he was just a boy from Corsica who went to military school. How did he become Emperor of France? How did he uh, write treaties? How did he deal with the other monarchs as peers? How did he do these things? He was uh, a transcendental genius. He remembered his past lives. He had access to information that normal people don't have access to. And yet, he wasn't all powerful and he wasn't all prophetic. He made mistakes. He did get tricked. He was too kind. So when people were very thoughtful with him, he would forget that they were schemers and plotters. I don't know if he just didn't want to see that in people. And the schemers and plotters used that against him. So he had this very gullible side. And then there's this like almost suicidal depression to Napoleon. This is somebody who is, I believe I've proven over and over and over again that he was madly in love with his stepdaughter. And his stepdaughter was also madly in love with him. So think about that. This is he's married to Josephine. He loves Josephine, sort of. She's okay, but he's really in love with Josephine's daughter. Josephine's daughter is every single thing Josephine is, plus she has integrity, plus she's very talented, plus she's very intelligent, plus she's very sympathetic. She has all of the qualities that Napoleon wants, plus the things he likes about Josephine. It's He really loved his stepdaughter. But what did he do about that? He had a million affairs about it. That's what he did. See, you have to understand who Napoleon was. He was somebody who could have, in a second, taken advantage of his stepdaughter. She adored him. Everybody thought they were having an affair anyway. He might as well have. He didn't. He married her to his brother and hands off and never told anyone. So this is somebody who had a lot of control over himself and who thought it was wrong to seduce his stepdaughter, even if his stepdaughter was madly in love with him, which she was. They were twin flames. I know they were. So this is somebody who has a lot of integrity, but has a lot of affairs. See, it's a contradiction. He's having these affairs because he can't be with his stepdaughter. His stepdaughter is the mother of his heirs. It's his sister-in-law. He cannot touch her, and she's a saint, basically. So he has to express himself in a different way because he has this incredible drive and passion, and it has to come out somewhere. And it came out in a lot of affairs, and he cheats on both of his wives. So he's a huge cheater, but he's also someone who is madly in love with his stepdaughter, and that never changes. So understand this person. This is somebody who's very nostalgic, sentimental, somebody who adored his mother. His mother was a heroic woman. He always loved his mother. Anyway, so I mean, I could go on and on about Napoleon, but the point about Napoleon is he could learn anything, he could figure anything out, but he rubbed people the wrong way. A lot of people didn't like him. A lot of women didn't like him. A lot of women found him obnoxious. He had a sadistic sense of humor. That's what he liked to pinch people till they cried. It's who he was. If he loved you, he did that. He pinched your ear till tears came out of your eyes. So he had this really sadistic sense of humor. but that's what made him laugh, and he was naughty, and he made little dirty jokes, and he was funny. He was a very funny person. So he's just, and he was sad. He was really sad. He felt very enslaved and trapped by his situation. He felt very bound to duty. He felt he had to do what he had to do. And everyone around him also was enlisted to help him fulfill his mission. So if that was his stepdaughter or his wife or his guys, everybody had to do their part to fulfill his dreams. And his dreams were for a better world, a better France. They were truly philanthropic dreams. And everybody had to pitch in and support him and do what he needed to have done. This was somebody who always had, as he put it, an object in view. He was always after something. He always wanted to convince somebody of something. He was always pushing for something. He was always planning things, scheming. He was ruthless about his ambitions, but they were good ambitions. And he didn't really care about money for himself. He did not compile money. It didn't matter to him that he had a lot of money. And yet he was extremely generous. He was much more generous with others than with himself. So this is a very unusual person who is not really that self-interested, but at the same time extremely ambitious and looking for, huge new achievements, and believed he had been Charlemagne. He was I'll add to that, Alexander and Julius Caesar. He truly believed that he was drawing on the experiences of these leaders, and that's what explained how this boy from Corsica could do all these things. He would tell people that he had been these people, so he openly believed in reincarnation, and he also believed in astrology. This is for sure. It's in his paintings. And he refers frequently to his lucky star, which I believe is Jupiter. Jupiter's not a star, but it looked like a star. It still looks like a star. Anyway, it's a beautiful star. So Napoleon was very into Jupiter, and he would have himself depicted as Jupiter. He believed in astrology. He paid attention to what day things. For example, he had 2 victories on July 14th, I believe. I can't remember them both right now. Friedland was one of them. I can't remember the other one. Anyway, so he had 2 victories on, I believe, June 14th. We should remember Marengo. It's Marengo and Friedland, I'm pretty sure. Anyway, so it was a big deal. Okay, next. I'm trying to give you a sense of who Napoleon was. And I ask you, I beg you, if you haven't listened to the memoirs yet, listen to them. Find out who he was. He was a quirk monster. He was a goofball. He was a workaholic. He was very ambitious. He was misunderstood. He was a very specific person. And a lot of people were jealous of him and tried to hold him back, but he really was very good natured, and he was very maligned, and he was very misunderstood. So I'm trying to give you his profile, and I'm trying to ask you to listen to the memoirs and find out who he was. Now, the person who I think is Napoleon right now, and prove me right or wrong, listen to his words and see what he's like according to him. Document that it is, even though I don't think everything's in there. No memoir has everything in it. He's telling you what he wants to tell you. And I think from his words, this person's words, we can get a sense of what's important to him, what he cares about, what his priorities are, what his goals are. All kinds of things I think should come out in this. And I'm talking about Elvis Costello, but I really don't want to call him that because I feel that's involved in, there's a lot of money people involved with that. It's almost like a commodity to me. I think he's achieved enormous, incredible things as under this stage name. And it's not to diminish any of that. It's incredible what he's accomplished, but I want to look at him in a new way. And I like to call him Coant because it's one of his albums is King of America, and I really I really love the picture on that. I think it's cute. And he called himself Napoleon Dynamite for a few years. So he's been dropping hints left and right his whole career that either he is Napoleon or he thinks he's Napoleon. That's not a question. Anyone who's a fan of his knows that he is dropping hints left and right about this. So he's clearly saying he's Napoleon, or he thinks he's Napoleon. Okay, I don't know how else to. I've seen all kinds of evidence that he wants you to associate him with Napoleon. He has the album Imperial Bedroom. He has, I believe he's called himself the Mighty Corsican. I haven't seen it, but I did see it somewhere that he's called himself that. And of course, when I was cruel, the cover has bees on it, and that was a symbol of Napoleon. I definitely noticed that. What else? It's just a lot of lyrics. Anyway, so I'm going to call him Coan just to have a new name for him. King of America, Napoleon Dynamite. I like it because it's kind of refers to Napoleon, because I always did see Napoleon in him. I did see Napoleon Dynamite, and I also think that movie Napoleon Dynamite was to mess with him, and I know he feels that way too. So anything with Napoleon, they have to come in and do their little PR tricks on it, because that movie is. I like the movie. It's a nice movie. I don't mind the movie. I just think it's to mess with him, so you'll not think of him as Napoleon. But I want to know what the other side thinks, because they don't leave us alone. So they're incredibly threatened by what's going on presently and all along. I think the more I look back, the more I realize this hidden hand has been involved a lot longer than I thought, because I've been talking about Napoleon since the 90s. I feel like I'm rambling. So let's start reading the words of this person I'm going to call Coan. All right, you can call him anything you want. That's a stage name. That's not even his real name. So I just think it's good to start over. So the book starts with, for those who came before and those who are still to come. And now we have a quote. Alone with your tweezers and your handkerchief, you murder time and truth, love, laughter, and belief. So don't try to touch my heart. It's darker than you think. And don't try to read my mind, because it's full of disappearing ink. Us fans all know that that's from All the Rage. Great song. Okay. Chapter 1, A White Boy in the Hammersmith Palais. I want to say it with his accent. I can hear it. I think it was my love of wrestling that first took me to the dance hall. There was barely, I have to tape it. 1, A White Boy in the Hammersmith Palais. I think it was my love of wrestling that first took me to the dance hall. There was barely a week of my childhood in which I did not have the following dialogue with a stranger. Any relation? Beg your pardon? Any relation to the wrestler? My mother might wearily manage an indulgent laugh, as if to say, I've never heard that before in my life. I just felt awkward, though I suspected I might indeed be a distant relation of Mick McManus, a professional wrestler who was a fixture on the Saturday afternoon televised bouts. The contests in the early 1960s had none of the pyrotechnics of the modern spectacle, just well-oiled showmen like Jackie Pallo or Johnny Quango, grappling and hurling sweaty lunks around, and sometimes out of a small roped ring. Mick McManus spelled his name like my papa had, before my dad added an A to make it MacManus, because it looked posher and better in print. Anyone could see that I shared the same stocky physique with the man you love to hate and had similar plastered down black hair. Later, it was revealed that, like me, Mick could only be forced into submission by tickling. Late in his career, Mick suffered a rare defeat when his opponent used this dastardly tactic, and the champ renounced the match in disgust. Back around 1961, I would practice my flying scissor kick in front of the television and then crumple as if felled by a forearm smash. Eventually, all my jumping off the furniture became too much for the neighbors, and my mother wanted to tidy the house, so she persuaded my dad to take me with him to work on Saturday afternoons at the Hammersmith Palais. This was my father's place of employment, his office, his factory. It was just an old tram shed that had been converted into a Palais de Danse, jammed in between the Laurie Arms pub and a parade of the shops just off the Hammersmith Broadway. While other dads came home at 5:30, my father went to work at 6 p.m., or in this case, on Saturday afternoon, to sing with the Joe Loss Orchestra. The walls of the Palais looked as if they were made of dark velvet, but it came off like powder if you ran your hand along it. It smelt and felt strange. It didn't seem like a place for children. Today, it's hard to imagine any establishment opening in the afternoon for so few patrons, but when the Joe Loss Orchestra revolved into view on the turntable bandstand, you would forget it was still light outside. I was given a bottle of lemonade and a packet of crisps and was secured in the balcony overlooking the dance floor with strict instructions to not speak to anyone. The clientele were as curious as they were sparse in number. When I pointed out the two old ladies were dancing together, they were identified as spinsters. There was a mother teaching her young daughter dance steps, sometimes lifting her onto her own feet to give the girl a sense of the right rhythm. Commanding the floor were the competition dancers who used the Saturday matinees for practice sessions. They jealously guarded their territory, intolerant of more frivolous obstacles like children. From my vantage point, their haughty expressions and sudden frozen poses seemed quite comical as they cocked their heads and made pecking movements with their quite, especially when they launched into a gallop during the quick stop. Foot soldiers fear cavalry charges for the same reason. There was nobody else up in the balcony except for the women who checked coats and another who sold refreshments at the kiosk. I think my dad had charged one of them with checking on me from time to time to make sure I hadn't wandered off. She needn't have worried. My eyes were fixed on the bandstand. At that time, the Joe Loss Orchestra was one of the most successful dance bands in the country. It consisted of 3 or sometimes 4 trumpets, 4 trombones, 5 saxophones, a rhythm section, and 3 vocalists. The band opened and closed every set and radio broadcast with its signature tune, In the Mood, which was borrowed from the Glenn Miller Orchestra. In fact, they still played a lot of Miller tunes from the war years, the beautiful and sentimental Moonlight Serenade, Pennsylvania 65000, with the band members shouting out the telephone number in the title, and American Patrol, which is my favorite, probably because it sounded like the theme song from a cops and robbers show. What the outfit lacked in musical adventure, Joe Loss made up for by hiring arrangers with a keen ear for fleeting dance trends. They had a hit with Must Be Madison and recorded novelty tunes with daft titles like March of the Mods, March of the Boomins, and Go Home Bill Ludendorff, which my dad wrote with the band's pianist, Sid Lucas. I still had a child's uncritical ear for the corny bell effect created by the horns on Wheels Cha Cha and waited for the tango or the paso doble numbers because of the comical dance moves or the samba, as my dad got to play the maracas or the conga drum. The competitive ballroom dancers used not to care much for vocalists because they pulled the beat around when phrasing, so my dad might only get to sing once or twice during the afternoon. I became impatient for those moments, kicking my leg against the balcony wall and picking idly at a swivel lid mounted on the tabletop until I pulled out my finger, all gray and powdered with ash. Finally, my father was called to the microphone to sing a Spanish number. It was a language that he could actually speak. He once made the Spanish wife of a friend of mine blush when she inquired where he had learned the Spanish tongue. In bed, he replied, I believe that was true. His talent for learning songs phonetically meant that he was able to fool most people when called upon to sing in Italian, French, even Yiddish. The Argentine international hit Quando Calienta Al Sol, and Peppino DiCapri's tremulous Italian pop hit Roberta, sung in Spanish, were two rumbas that I heard him sing during those afternoons. They were eventually recorded for the wonderfully titled Go Latin with Loss album, on which Ross also sang Richie Valens' La Bamba. My father didn't have the appearance of the typical romantic leading man. He was only 5'5" and wore black horn rimmed glasses, much like the ones I've sported most of my career. His hair was slicked tight at the sides and swept up into a discreet jet black pompadour until the fashion for brushing your hair forward caught up with him around 1965 and he started to buy Chelsea boots with Cuban heels from Toppers and Carnegie Street. So wrong. Carnegie Street. In 1961, my dad was 33. The boys in the band, as he always referred to them, seemed like older men to me, but were probably only in their late 30s and 40s. They wore matching band uniforms, shawl collar jackets of burgundy or baby blue, and dress pants with a satin side stripe. My father wore a dark lounge suit for the matinees and evening dress when the occasion demanded it. The idea that you wore a suit to go to work became so instilled in me that to this day, the temperature must soar well above 100 degrees Fahrenheit before I will remove my jacket. All right. That is the first installment. There is so much Napoleon here, I can't even tell you. Napoleon was a nostalgia monster. I couldn't tell you any of that about my childhood. Napoleon was like, he's crazy about his nostalgia. He's just like that, first of all. Other thing, Napoleon was a writer, great writer. And he was in no way trained as a writer. And I will say this, like, I'm not even going to go on and on and on about how much Napoleon was in that, but I found something out about Cohen, and it's really interesting. Like I think I'm hearing him, so there's no getting around that. And he told me, he said, go look at that song, Secondary Modern. Like, I hope this happened the way I think it happened, but he showed me that song, Secondary Modern, and I heard that song a million times. And till the girls go home or whatever. I didn't even know what it was about. And I looked at the lyrics. I found out what it was about. I did see something in this book about his education being very eccentric, to put it mildly, because a lot of what's done to us is our educations are sabotaged, and this is what happened to him. it happened to me to I couldn't go to the top of my class because I couldn't get into the smart kids classes either. I think it's very interesting. He and I both have that in common. I had no way of going to the top of my class because I could never be in the advanced classes, and the advanced classes gave those students extra points. So I could not compete with them ever, and I could never be in their classes. I still ended up getting a very good education, so I can't complain about that. But what I did learn about Cohen, and I hope I'm saying this correctly, and I hope I'm understanding this correctly, but he had his education sabotaged. That breaks my heart. But if I am understanding this correctly, at the age of 11, he he was put into like the dumber kids track, and it's called, I believe, secondary modern, and he wrote a song about it. Um, this person who's one of the most brilliant people, I literally think he's Napoleon. That's how smart I think he is. Was put in the dumber track in England. Okay, if that doesn't say everything about how people like me and him are sabotaged, and whatever I do say about what he did or didn't do is in his career, he's worked so hard to achieve what he's achieved, and he did his best. And this is the environment we're in, where either you make a deal with these people or um, you get your ticket out of society and money and life. And it's hard to live on this planet without money. So we've all had to make really difficult choices. And when I call people all kinds of things, I totally get it. Everybody has to live and survive. And now that I understand, what he went through and the obstacles that he faced and all these, I feel I do not understand everything about his life by any stretch of the imagination, but I do feel that he's given me a sense of his motivation and how things ended up to the crazy point where uh, I was basically calling him controlled opposition. I was calling him things like that. And that's the last thing I think he ever wanted to be or become or have me perceive him that way. I think that's been really not a lot of fun for him to have me view him that way. But I have viewed him that way because he was maneuvered into that because there's somebody who wants him to appear that way, or there's someone who wants him to actually be that way. It's called subversion. It's called the difficulty of living under a dark occult theocracy. We're all compromised by it. I wish I could say that I'm this wonderful person who is not compromised by it. I'm fighting so hard because I am compromised by it and because I want to be free. And I beg all of you to look within, pray, find out what your mission is, find out what your role is in this. I'm begging you, do your job because everybody can do something for us to get to that next place. Because the reason it's gotten this way is because the criminals are just having it way too easy. We've been too docile, too sheep like. And as long as they can do anything they want and we'll just take it, it's going to get much worse for us. So it's essential that we become, very strong, vigilant, intelligent, righteous people who know where we stand, know what we will and will not do. And they're going to do anything they can get away with. No exceptions. And they want us gone. We're only still here because many of us are fighting very hard. And please keep the fight up. This is a fight for our lives. And I mean, anyone can hear, I don't even want to live on this planet anymore. And I am not alone in that. They want us suicidal. They want us that unhappy because that's how they feel. And when they get us to feel terrible like they do, they feel they've won some kind of award for that. But the key is to do everything we can to understand each other. Just this is such an inspiring situation. I can't say this enough with me and Cohen because we're not supposed to get along. We're supposed to really hate each other. And I was engineered into saying things to him that would make him hate me. And instead of hating me, he understood that this is a righteous fight and this is a correct fight. And I think there's a lot more going on beyond that because I think he and I are both extremely connected to Napoleon to the point that I think it's actually his higher self. And I'm so connected to his higher self. So I don't even know what's going on with my own higher self. I'm so connected to Napoleon. I really don't. I'm so connected to Napoleon. So I'm so connected. It's very hard for me to misinterpret who's Napoleon. He's such a specific person. But yes, it's hard to believe. This all sounds crazy. I totally understand that. He has been dropping hints his entire career. He's a song called Poor Napoleon. Lots of stuff, okay? Somebody who's been dropping hints left and right about this his entire career. He wants you to know, and he certainly wants me to know. And he wants me to tell you, okay? He really is, and he can do anything. He's a wonderful musician. He's incredible. He can do anything. If I think he just felt that music was something he could do, and it was his best shot at making a difference in this world. And I think they got the better of him. That's what I think happened to him. And what I see is that the spirit of Napoleon has been maybe a bit dormant, I hate to say. But it was always there. I can see Napoleon screaming to get out the whole time. But they're good at subverting people. They're good at dimming a person's spark. And if you want to see how our enemies, I'm gonna just call them financiers for what else can I call them? You know, these financiers, just call them that. The effect they've had on him breaks my heart. Because look at him at the beginning of his career. He's been through so much. You can just see it. What he's been through. He's never hidden how hard life has been on him. He hasn't hidden anything. I think he's been very straightforward. But he's caught up in this thing, and it's organized crime. Remember Godfather? Frank Sinatra. Hey, Godfather, I want a part in that movie. That's how it is. But it's in the movies, it's like Italian. In real life, it's more like the bespoke suits, the fancy guys, the snakes in suits. That's how it really is. They make it like it's the guy in Nassau County. It's guys in suits, more like, just to get the right image in your mind. Anyway, thank you so much for listening to this. Please do this with me. Find out who Napoleon was. Like you said, just that little excerpt. It was just loaded. This is somebody who's very nostalgic. Don't listen to him. Just listen to him, So much nostalgia. Can't believe it. I like it. I like to hear about it. I'm not that. I'm not like that. I don't look so fondly in the past, unfortunately. Anyway, but I want to hear about it. I want to hear about all his nostalgia, and I want to hear about everything he did. And let's go through this book and find out what he's telling us, because he's a really so beyond his music. He's a really special person, and that's what I'm trying. That's why I did that whole stream yesterday, to show you that he was so human with me. And I think it is because he is actually my twin flame, and I don't think he can afford to trash this. He can't live. I'm like attached to him, so he has to get along with me. He has no choice, because I'm his twin flame. That's really what's going on here, and that's why he was so good to me, and that's why I was so mad at him, because he really is my twin flame, and I couldn't stand seeing him like that. And I don't know if he can stand seeing me like this either. I'm so sad.